Liz Bell Young. I am so excited to have you on this fourth season of For Real. Welcome, and thank you for agreeing to join me in a chat.
Thanks, Kim. Thank you so much.
I'm so excited to talk with you. I sought you out in large part because there is a beautiful word in the title of your new book, and the word is haven. I absolutely clicked on your publicist's email because of the word haven and because of the beautiful cover. I love that word. I read a lot of words for my work these days, but man, some words are weightier than others. So then I low-key stalked you on your website and Instagram and your photography and your design and your book. And so now you're here. So that's just to let people in on all of the magic involved in
Yes.
getting on a podcast. Just get Kim to stalk you and it
That's
works
right.
out. Yeah.
It feels really good.
Yeah. You're being very magnanimous. You're not scared of stalkers. Cool. What does that word haven mean to you? You've been sitting with it for a while. Most folks know that when you write a traditionally published book, it takes approximately 49 years from the beginning idea to actually getting out into people's hands. And the book is in people's hands. So after all of that time, tell me about the word haven. How is it sticking with you these days?
Well, it came as a word. It was one of those. I had been working for a while, over a decade in a church, and had kept. I've always loved to have my hands in a lot of different projects, and I wanted to figure out a way to sort of umbrella, like what did I really want to really put like my heart in and energy, because energy is limited. Where did I really want to put that? And for a while, so I started to experiment and kind of try different types of work, and I kept getting drawn to this sort of like how to create both like a sort of a quieting and a safe place, whether that was with words, if I was doing a story, or if that was with an environment, if I was creating something for others to walk through, or a product. And so I kept being drawn, but I didn't have a word for it yet. I just had a feeling of what I wanted it to be. And one day I was driving and it was just like, oh, it's haven. It just came. And when a word comes to you that feels like exactly what it's supposed to be, I was like, swerving under it. Not really. I was
Awesome.
totally safe, but
I support the swerve.
So yeah. And then as I thought about, so I created like a sort of a photo essay magazine out of that. And that was like a big exploration. Like what is haven? What does it mean to feel like sheltered and taken care of? What does it not mean? How do you bring people to a place that feels like home, where they can really let down their guard and feel at ease? And so I got to do a lot of that exploring work. And then I got to the point where I just thought I'm ready to really try to articulate it into a body of work, and really instead of just like doing multiple pieces or multiple projects, I wanted to go, sort of the full kit and caboodle, and decided that would be the topic of the book.
I just love the name. I love the idea. There's something so visceral in my response to the word haven, right? I mean, that must mean that we want it, right? We want a safe place. We want a place either physically or, as you said, with words and conversation. I love how you talk about this because it's not just a really lovely dinner, which is great. We're going to talk about that in just a second. I just love that you have expanded my view of that word. In your introduction, here's the thing, kids. Writing an introduction of a book is in my opinion, a certain kind of torture, because you are required to make 65,000 words, do a little appetizer in a cohesive and engaging way in not a lot of words. Maybe I'm the only one who feels like this, but I actually usually write introductions of my books at the very end of the process, once I actually know what the heck it is.
Yes.
Your introduction, Liz, is so beautiful. I was so tempted to read it out loud, but people don't need to hear Kim, okay? They need to see this on the page and drink it in. It is so beautifully written. So first of all, kudos to you
Yeah.
because I hate that job and you did it so well.
Thank you.
Um, Introductions frequently are kind of the heartbeat of the book, I think, kind of
Yeah.
letting people know here's the pulse we have together for the next 8 to 10 hours that you're reading this. You've talked a little bit about that, but how did you decide after making, you mentioned Haven, which was the magazine that I think you partnered with Anthropologie for that, the store Anthropologie?
They distributed that. Yeah.
Okay, got
Yeah.
it. That's so very sweet and Midwestern that you said that so calmly. I'd be
I
doing
mean,
high kicks, but that's nice. Yes, they
there's
distributed it.
exclamation points in my heart.
Okay, got it. It just didn't come out. That's good. That's
Yeah.
good. I love that. So you kind of wrote around this idea for a while.
Yeah.
How did you decide the real kind of nexus or the thesis of this particular book? Because lots of folks listening have ideas of a project or an endeavor, and it's hard sometimes to pull all of those things out of the sky and put them in one spot.
Yeah.
Can you coach
Yes.
me on this?
Well, Coach, you can.
Yes,
Um,
please. Please.
I think, like you said, it often comes later, like that you have to work your way through a lot of stuff to get to what is at the core. And I think that's why a lot of times, you hear in writing, like just you'll end up scrapping your first chapter, but
Yeah.
you had to walk yourself into the story. And so I probably was halfway, 3/4 of the way through the book. And we were on a family trip. And, when I started the book, I thought it was going to be much more about design and place.
Mm.
We were building a new house. I thought, well, this is a way to sort of put a structure around it, right? Like
Mhm.
kind of build this idea around like, breaking ground, building a house and kind of focus on that. And then as I started to actually write the book, I realized I do love place. I do love setting up environments, but it's about setting up the heart. And so if that's not there, and so as I was, about halfway through the book and we were just, on a family vacation and I woke up and I was like, oh, that's the story I have to start with. And it really did feel that way because it is very vulnerable, that story. I know we toss around the word vulnerable a lot, but like I can still like it still feels me with like the heat in my face. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like it
Yeah,
was that
totally.
kind of moment, that admittance of truth. And so I didn't even know. I was like, do I really want to put this in the book? But if I don't know if it's the right way to get people to understand the approach that I'm taking. We're talking about creating safe places for people and taking care of people. And so that's where it came from. And um, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know if that quite answers.
No, it does. It does. I think one of the things that I love about talking with so many people about how they come to um, decide on one idea that they want to hang out with for a really long time. These things happen in so many different ways, sometimes on vacation with our families, right? Sometimes when you're driving
Yes,
and you have to swerve off the road.
that's right.
In my experience, forcing that process is pretty futile. So you do the
Mhm.
work of kind of figuring out a lot of things, but sometimes that heartbeat doesn't come out, as you said, until you've got some steps into the road. And that's not just writing a book or for you for design or building a home or
Yeah.
designing beautiful custom wallpaper. You have your hands in a lot of different things. And lots of our listeners do too. And I feel like a lot of what stops us is feeling like we need to know Z before we do A, B, C, D, E, F.
Yeah.
So we can be our own worst
Yes.
enemy with that.
Yes.
And so I'm always encouraging people. I'm glad you just did as well. Like get get started. Start the thing, whatever the thing is,
Yes.
and put a little less pressure on the final while you're in the rough.
Yes. Oh, I think that's beautiful advice. And I don't know if you find this as a writer, like I hit a really bad spot at 80% too.
Yes.
Like where I just feel like, well, this is just
Trash.
not even worth it. It's
Yep.
trash.
Mhm.
It's not even close to what I imagined it to be. And so I'm a big, like, I love if I can kick something to the curb, that's just
Mm.
like a really wonderful feeling. I'm
Thanks,
like,
that
good
was
riddance.
fun. Bye.
Yeah, I'm ready for something new. So I think that it's like that beginning stuff, and then that like you're kind of getting close to the
Mm,
end, and it can be very difficult. And so
yeah.
that's how I've also encouraged other people who are going through these like, big projects, or like, don't stop before you finish. Like, try to finish that well, because I've seen the fruit of just like
Mm,
pushing into that last section.
yes. It's funny that we feel so less equipped at the end of something sometimes than at the beginning. You'd think we have some miles under the belt, we'd be better at that. But
Yeah.
Liz, I want to ask you about hospitality. Hospitality, to me, that if haven is a welcoming word, sometimes hospitality, particularly in female church circles,
Mm.
has been used in my head to mean let's make a wreath or a collage or let us scrapbook. And I know that's unfair. And so I'm so glad you're here to untangle this because one of the many reasons, I mean, I cannot stop thinking about your book. You use the phrase, the subtitle is an invitation. Sorry, I never even told you the whole darn title. Here you go. Let there be havens, an invitation to gentle hospitality. I feel like the word gentle opens a new door. Gentleness to the people who are coming into your space or your time or your energy, but also gentleness to you as the host.
Sure.
I would love for you to tell the story. You can tell as much or as little as you want about a neighbor who visited you when you and your husband were living in Italy on September 11, the original September
Okay.
11, and
Yeah.
he was in the military. And you tell this story about a neighbor who extended hospitality to you in a way
Yeah.
that is teaching me a different version of that word. So, can you tell that story?
Sure. Um, so had been overseas for maybe a year or so with the military when this happened, and September 11th. And my husband was the soldier. I was the accompanying dependent. And so a small military post in the middle of a city in Italy. We were told to, quickly get off the post, get safe, go to your houses. All of the people, all the soldiers on the post were going to be sent on mission. So, they're ready for this. They're ready for rapid deployment. I was not ready for rapid deployment. All of this was just completely out of the blue. You read about it sometimes on paper, and then it happens. And so I got off the post. I drove the 7 miles back to our house, and I write about how my instinct was like hide, hide, hide. Lock everything, which we hadn't even like, I didn't even know how to lock our front door, like with the deadbolt. We hadn't even done that because we're like living in Italy. Why is it scary? And so I was just, slamming like the windows shut, the metal shutters, got super dark inside. And I just kind of sat against one of the windows that I had closed. And then I started to hear the buzzer ring on our gate outside. We were living in like a multi-family unit, and someone was ringing this buzzer. And of course, I'm going through all these scenarios. I'm like, why is somebody like, because I'm an American on an this is a completely Italian community. We did not live with the other Americans at that point. And so it just was incessant that kept ringing. Finally, I was like, I will just look out my front door and check. And it was a woman from our street. She was in her house dress and bare feet, and she was holding a box in her hands, a white box. And I only spoke a little bit of Italian at that point. And I went to the gate and let her in, and she just started talking, pantomiming, trying to, am I okay? Is my husband okay? She understands he's a soldier. I could tell in her expression, she was trying to tell me that sorry, they cared about us. They wanted us to be safe because, of course, at that time, you're just thinking like, everybody hates us. And then she pushes this box to me and opens it, and it's a box of chocolate. And Kim, the funny thing is that like some were already bitten out of and put back in the box. and and she like, was showing me like, pick up a piece of chocolate. And so she did, and I did, and she put hers back in after she tried another one. Um
Nobody likes the orange cream.
nobody, nobody ever wanted it. Why do you still do it?
Oh, I
Still
love
first. Um
it.
and and so yeah, it was we shared that, and then she just held me. We were sweating, and she sang. That was the other thing is she just started to sing to me. And I came home years later and told my parents that story. And my mom said, I think that's when you learn something about hospitality. Like what you learned is that she, as soon as she could, she came to you. She was probably waiting to see when your car pulled out.
Mm.
She grabbed what she had, which was a box of half-eaten, taste-tested chocolate, and she came out the door in a house dress and bare feet, and she offered it to me. Um, and that was where that, sort of that idea of like, okay, what do you have to offer?
Mm, mm.
That's hospitality. That's taking care of people, not breaking your back, to set the perfect table or make the most beautiful scrap paper, but really like, again, it's that heart forward hospitality, not like the performance hospitality. Um, and so I, that was a pivotal moment, especially then reflecting back on that and thinking, so what is it? Like how do you encourage and teach people to take care of each other? For me, it was so many of experiences like that where people took care of me, not in the, beautiful guest room way, although sometimes it's a beautiful guest room, but in those kinds of situations, where you just can kind of melt into somebody's arms.
I mean, I even knew this story and I cried again when you were telling it just now. And I think the reason for that, in addition to my affection for crying, is just what you and your mom said, that we overcomplicate deciding what people expect instead of offering what we have. Those are very different things, and
Yeah.
I am guilty of this all the time. I want you to talk a little bit about that in context, in the eating situation. So we often I the idea of inviting people in, I think for many of us is associated with a meal or creating something for people to eat together.
Yeah.
And I am a huge proponent of eating together. I'll ask you about that in just a second. But I have lots of friends who don't actually like to cook and they would like to maybe assemble, but their idea of fun is not spending a day or even an afternoon in the kitchen
Yeah.
making something for everybody to eat together. So let's set aside the eating part.
Yeah.
Talk to me more about what's creating a haven that's not requiring us to cook or not requiring us to be
Mm.
the traditional idea of hospitable in terms of gathering people for a meal that we make. Other havens, go.
Yes. You know, I really like as I was thinking about this because I felt it was so important to talk about like temporary havens, spontaneous. How do you take care of a stranger potentially? How do you take care of a friend out in the wild who is having a hard day? How do you take care of a neighbor that you don't know and things like that? And so like what I started to, it was really like realizing the things that you don't necessarily associate with hospitality. For instance, I wrote this one because my sister does this so beautifully, but she will go to a mom who's just had a baby or has toddlers, and she just does their laundry. She takes it away from their house, does it in her own washer dryer, delivers it folded, drops it off, doesn't say a word, just sets it on your porch because you're a young mom and you don't even have time sometimes to answer a door.
I mean, that is your book, in addition to being so beautiful, is very practical. We are all doing our
Mhm.
laundry. And I remembered with my body. That when you write that
Oh,
paragraph about being, I mean, remember that the endless
yes.
laundry, and there's no way you can
Yes.
get to it. My friend Holly one time said to her husband when they had their very first really tiny baby, the options are for you to have a clean house or a clean wife. I can't do both. And
Oh,
in my opinion, getting the top rack of the dishwasher will be clean house. I remember her saying that. Like just one small thing a day feels so monumental when you're going through a huge transition or through
yes.
grief or through loss or illness. So yes, laundry on the porch, no asks, no
Yeah.
response. Don't even have to, chit chat about it. Just here you go. This is a quiet haven for you that you can not worry about today. I love that, Liz. Love it. Love it.
Mm, good. I'm trying other ones that come to mind. I read about the woman in the store who just slid a grocery cart underneath me when I hadn't gotten one. And I'm
As I
just a
too.
mess. And
Totally.
you end up with 30 and you thought you were getting two things. And
Yep. Mm-hmm.
again, it was just like very this is that word gentle.
Mm-hmm.
Drew no attention to herself or to me, like just pushed it under my hands. Um so I think taking things out of people's hands to like walk with them or help them. I really do think, I mean, this is the one that I think sounds kind of old fashioned, but it's like opening the door for people and then waiting to hold it a little bit longer than you think might even be, it's a little bit awkward sometimes, but like welcome people to a place, even if it's not yours. Like I talked a little bit about beaming on people. I just think like when you delight in someone else's presence, like just the fact that they're human and they're there and now you're there together, um, that's hospitality with what you have. Um,
I love it.
yeah.
I love it. I love it. I think it's so, um, it makes this surmountable to us. The idea of welcoming people in and not such, as you said, performative. I love that. What did you say? Not performing, heart forward instead of performance. I mean, come on. Um, there is something now that I've completely helped you or wanted you to make a case for not eating together. There is something about eating together. And,
What?
we know this. We know this because we have all, if we're lucky, we have been on the receiving end of that, being at a table where you feel like you are being, as you say, cared for and that you're so invited and so welcomed. I find I have problems. And one of the problems is that when I'm in hostess mode, somewhere along the line, I like to be organized. And so somewhere along the line, I picked up that I need to do all of the work in advance, hand someone a glass of wine or a drink when they come in, and then they don't do anything. And I like that you have a little rebellion about this, and I'm into it. I'm going to try this. I've kind of half-heartedly tried this with family members, but it's not just family now. You say, give people jobs, give people work, and a part of the process when they come in. So intentionally don't slice the bread. Intentionally don't finish
Mhm.
all the things. Um, why do you suggest that? I have a feeling. Why do you do that? Because I've noticed people sitting at my countertop watching me run around is pretty lame. It is. Like they don't like it. I don't like it because I feel like they're uncomfortable and I'm sweating. And they don't like it
Right.
because they feel superfluous or kind of like they're intruding or making me work. No to that. So
Yes.
tell me why this is
Yes.
important to
Oh, that's such a
involve
good
people
thing to
in the
call out.
thing.
Um, I I think it came just from trying it.
Yes.
Because I also started that way too. I was very much like get it right, get it done so
Yes.
that you can all, and I think it's a little bit like I've heard people say this like about even public speaking, like where if you're nervous, you make your audience
Uh-huh.
nervous.
Uh-huh.
And I think it's kind of like if you're sort of fretting and sweating and performing, I think you put your guests in a place that doesn't it's not comfortable. Or to your point, it's like they feel bad for putting you through that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I was just so it came I'm not trial and error, but just sort of like just watching it unfold when we were doing some big events and all the women, like it was just all female thing. And all of the women, like they like really wanted to help, kept asking, could it?
Right.
And so we were like, well, then maybe everybody just gets a part. And then that just translated into the way we do it in our house. I'm a big assembly person too. I like to unwrap cheese and just put a knife into it. Like,
Yeah.
not necessarily bake it, and put nuts and fruit. I mean, I think that's wonderful, but like, I also just like, give me Trader Joe's and let me unwrap something.
Oh,
Uh,
amen. Yes. What would we
so
do without Trader Joe's? Yes.
I don't know,
Yeah.
no clue. So yeah, so I think like being a part of the contribution, and I think we all really know this. It's just like you have to kind of get over your pride,
Yes.
to be willing to do it and to not, again, it's like, this is not, the spotlight is not on you. And so if you're, if you're all worked up, I think that's sort of insinuating a little bit that it is. And so if you allow people also the joy of like participating, then then it's even nicer to sit down and like eat the beautiful thing that you made together.
Mm,
I really do think that it feels way better that way.
totally. No, I totally agree. There's a woman in my hometown who teaches people, she's from Italy, and she teaches people how to make any particular dish or, create their own pasta or their own gnocchi or whatever. And then they all eat it together. And people freak out
Yeah.
about this. And I think it's not just because the food is great. I'm sure it's great. I think it's the gathering together and being part of the process that's so much more fulfilling than just showing up and having her cook for them.
Yeah. It's,
So I nod my
yeah.
head and I agree with that in my own darn heart, and then I don't do it in my house. So that's my next, that's top of mind for me. And thank you for reminding me of how great that is. You ran a camp, Liz.
Yeah. With
N-
great women.
I
Not
don't mean
alone.
to, props to all the people who were helping, but I'm not going to go too much into that because I want people to read about it. Most of us don't run huge events. And by the way, this is camp, not like Parent Trap camp. This was like beautiful gathering
Oh, but
together
I
camp.
loved Parent Trap Camp.
So did I. Well, I'm sure there's a more scholarly version of that, but I went straight to Haley Mills, Parent Trap. Um, so talk to me about what you know from that. So for most of our listeners, they're not probably going to run, I mean, some do gigantic events or gatherings, but what do you take from those experiences now that's in your daily and that can be in my daily too?
Oh, the first thing that comes to mind is that, so, we did this I mean, this is the Midwest and just big fields, a few hills, nothing, it's not gorgeous. There's broken down farm equipment. It's not beautiful. I mean, in a Midwestern way, it's beautiful.
Right, right, right.
And so one of the things that we had to just sort of relinquish was like, we can't transform an entire environment. Like, you can't do that to 500 acres. But you can create like little moments or little scenes. And so that was our work. We're like, what are the small things that we can touch? And I talk about like, well, we're like, well, the portalets are so ugly. And I don't know why.
Portalets. In our town, we call them porta pots
Oh,
or
porta pots.
kaibos for some reason. Is anyone else listening have a kaibo? Why is that? Anyway, you mean portable toilets.
Waterboard toilets.
The always
Um,
unfortunately colored, like they don't
yes.
blend.
Like,
Yeah.
why are they cobalt blue? I
I
have
don't
no
know.
idea.
I've often wondered that my own darn self.
Maybe it makes them easy to spot in a concert setting.
Yes. Okay. In
But
emergency settings, you want cobalt blue, maybe not a.
that's right. But
Okay.
not in a field when you're trying to create like a beautiful camp setting.
Right.
So we're just like, what are the little things? We will put fresh lavender inside of them. We will put tampons. We will put little pretty signs on the doors. But I think that it was things like that that I think about now. Like, it can be overwhelming. I know for people, if I invite people into my house isn't ready,
Yeah.
or I don't even like think anything in my house is beautiful. And it's very overwhelming to like, how I can't transform this entire place, but can I make a couple spots?
Mm.
Can I make a few little scenes? I mean, it's the same way, we're often probably as a fiction writer, right? Like you start there, you're like, let me make a few moments, and then the story
Mm.
starts to build. And I think it's the same in environments.
It's good. I would add what you have written about. It's also a moment of of feeling like you are held in that space, feeling like you are,
Mhm.
as a guest or even a co-conspirator, that you are welcomed. I mean, whether that's in a car,
Yeah.
in a garage, in the dark when you're having a really rich conversation, or
Yeah.
on your porch. I mean, I think it's not only I get in my own way when I, as you said, think things have to be ready, whatever ready means, right?
Mhm.
Instead, how are people going to feel when they're with me? Not just in my home, but in conversation and out in the wild.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
just really beautiful reminder. My last question for you, second to last question. You value beauty. You are an artist. You are classically trained. Um, I just mean you have a degree in that. So, and you do beautiful, beautiful work. You value beautiful things. I think God values beautiful things. Beautiful things take time and attention, and they cost us to make them. So there's this little spot where you write about how and you alluded to this earlier, that when you're in the middle of a project and even toward the end of a project, you can start to, I call it the wanderlust, when you think every other project looks fantastic
Yeah.
except for the one that you're working on. And you write
Yes.
about this even in terms of building a house with your husband, and, 11th hour, you're like, we can pull the plug. Let's forget it. Let's not do this. And you say, and then just total kindness to the reader, this is normal. It's normal. The bailing instinct is very normal
Right.
prior to release or prior to the endeavor. I'm wondering, now that you've released this book, what did it look like on the other side? Was there another
Mm.
bail? Because sometimes for me, when I get it out into the world, there's another wave of, oh dear, there it is.
Yes.
Or did you feel a total like, gosh, I'm so glad that's out there and it's beautiful and I took time and attention and that's what I wanted? Or a mix? How did you feel?
You know, I oh, Kim, how did I feel? I think I'm
And
still
right now.
processing it
Yeah, yeah,
because
totally.
it's so fresh. It was hard. We just had like a small, like in person, at a bar gathering, and that was hard to go through with.
Really? You mean to
Yes,
celebrate the release of your book?
yes.
Now, why is
Um,
that?
well, part of it might be like I didn't like having birthday parties. I didn't like to be the center of attention.
Yeah.
And so to like that's like a book release party is like, well,
Really about you. Yep.
yeah.
And your book. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. So I think a little bit that, and then probably also just because that like feels really real, like
Mm.
to be out somewhere, you've got boxes of books and people are coming, um, so that I invited people like a week before. Like that's
Oh,
so
funny.
I did, I guess, wanna just not even put the plug in or whatever it would be like there was no
Totally.
plug to pull. It was just like not saying, "Would you like to come?"
Yeah.
And so I do think I'm still processing it. The writing the book though was, um it was happening in tandem with the building of the house. So all of that stuff, which my publisher was like, are you sure you want to do like this, all of this at the same time? But I thought, I think that it's probably the best way to tell the story. And I knew it was going to be hard. Like I knew because, once you've done this stuff for a while, you're like, well, you have to live the stuff that you're creating, or like you're going to write about grace and then you're going to be tested.
The worst. What was I thinking? Yeah.
Yeah, and so, like, I knew it would happen. I knew I would get, like, just things coming out left and right, and
Hmm.
so but I so expecting it was helpful, having friends ready, like, sort of on their guard to help me through that stuff was immensely helpful, and, so I never felt like I don't wanna release it. I think because I was so aware of like, okay, this is and also I really did actually love the process. Even the hard stuff that was like personal, but like I really did love the process. Because I do like to make things like so many people I'm sure who are listening. Like I mean, what's more exciting than like, writing little things down on slips of paper or putting rocks together to form a wall or whatever it is that you're doing. I love it.
Yeah.
Creation is amazing.
Yeah. Well, I think it's absolutely hilarious that you wrote about making spaces for people and moments for people that are havens, and then you almost didn't invite any of them to celebrate the book about the haven. So just know you are
Yeah.
in such good company. I see you and I raise you in all of those feelings. Okay, last question I ask all of my guests. It is the book nerd question. If you could recommend to us a book that you return to over and over, that maybe you read it a long time ago, maybe it's recent, but you would frequently recommend
Oh,
this book to lots of folks. And maybe if there's one on your shelf these days that you're thinking, when I have a little time, I'm so excited to read that.
oh, that is, I love that. Okay. Can I
Can
pause? Because I'm
Oh,
going to
for
have
sure.
to,
Yeah, for sure.
I want to get the title right. Is it the War of Resistance? No. Um,
The Art
I
of
guess
War? Not
possible.
Parfield.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Phil.
Wait, no, the War of Art. War of Art?
Yeah. Why is that? That doesn't sound right, does it?
The War. It has to be the War of Art because the Art of War is about war, but I think the
Yes,
War
and
of
that's
Art
the
is
old
about art.
book. Okay. So the art of war?
I think it's
No.
the War of Art. The war, it's in your book
Yeah.
even. I can't see it here. Okay, so The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. But you say it. The one is this
Okay.
the one you recommend all the time?
I'm actually gonna switch right now and say
Okay.
something else. After all
I
that,
hate that book. Forget it. No, I'm just
yeah, that
kidding.
was
It's a great
terrible.
book.
It's so good. um, so the book is Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott.
Oh, yes. That has
And
legs for years and years in my life.
you get it. And I taught some writing classes with
Yeah.
that book to just non-writers, just freshmen in
Yeah.
college. And it was so freeing for people. Just the concept. I mean, we didn't even like study page by page. It was just this idea
Yeah.
of like just the next good step, right?
Yeah.
Like bird by bird. It was so beautiful. And I still like I know that. Like I'm trying to practice bird by bird sort of
Yeah.
in lots of
Yeah.
ways. That's the create little scenes, right? You can't do the whole thing, but you can do the little next
Yeah.
thing, the next bird.
So good. So good. Okay. Definitely Bird by Bird. Any others that you're excited to read in future? Oh,
Reading this. Because this is
this
the
is
one I'm reading. This is it. And
okay.
I know you're
She
gonna,
she's
don't edit
holding
that
up.
out. I'm talking to your editor now. Please don't edit this out.
Okay, she's holding up my book. This is not a paid endorsement. This is a very organic moment, I promise you. I do not send my guests copies
This
of my
this
book.
is super true, but I want to tell you why. Because it is so good to laugh like hard.
Hmm.
And then to be like have this tidal wave of understanding of grace in this book. And speaking of bird by bird, like I haven't really felt this experience with the book, like where it's like life and hilarious and detail and I mean beautiful writing mixed with like teaching you about something
Mhm.
that's pretty difficult to teach about. Like you almost have to like experience grace, but like it's kind of like you are leading people into the experience of grace with the book itself. And so I don't take this out, editor, not a paid endorsement. I really am loving it.
You are very kind. And those words coming from you are gift upon gift. So, because that's how your book felt to me. So, we must be looking for the same thing in our reading experiences. And I'm
Yeah.
honored that you would include me in yours. Liz Bell Young, thank you for joining me from your beautiful home that you built.
Sure.
Wow. You have more strength in your heart than I do in mine, since I can't even decide how far off the floor an outlet should go. That was a recent question. I said, I don't know. Where do they
Not
go?
easy.
So thank you for letting us in on that process, but also on the idea that a haven is something we all can create and that we all
Mhm.
need so desperately. So thank you for joining me. It was a delight to
I
meet you.
felt the same. Thanks, Kim.